See, I think the problem is that, and the only reason I think I know what it is because it's surrender, is because knowing, believing in God and going to church isn't the same as having Him transform your heart and mind. And in order for that to take place, it took total surrender. It took the wiping away of all the identities and the ego and totally just surrendering to God. That's the only reason I'm saying this, because that's where I have seen miracles take place. So unlike the founders of 1776, no, nothing against them, they don't realize, no, God does intervene, and He proved that with Alcoholics Anonymous. Nobody there would take credit for them getting sober. Again, because if we could do it, we would have done it. What we realize is that God is doing for us what we cannot do for ourselves. And where did it start? Complete surrender. I'm not saying that God wants you to live in poverty. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying God's against money. But He wanted to start from scratch since Jesus. That was always the point. But in order for people to do that, they have to have the heart and mind transformed. That's why the churches, even though many of them don't mean to lead people astray, they do, because they just have this idea that Paul said, no matter what, you see the government as they're instituted by God. Did you think Joe Biden was? Now maybe Joe Biden was, because it was a lesson. However, there's many times no. We vote these people in, and how many times do people say we're voting the lesser of two evils? Well, we shouldn't be voting evil in it all, right? But that's what we do. And God understands that, but there comes this point. Like I said, it seems like America's like in this bottleneck right now, and God's trying to pop everybody out of it. And obviously some people will not get on board with that, but God knows that. He never needed everybody to. But He needs those that are truly committed to Him, because to believe in Him doesn't mean much when you're just worrying about, like, all I see is people worrying about money. And it is a concern, believe me, it's a concern. But that's why you want God's kingdom, because you'll have a fair system. The money problem will be fixed. And it's not that God wants you to live in poverty, but in order to get to true wealth, you have to start with surrendering. He's not just going to come back and give it to you when the people still think that, no, I'm going to keep my foot because I think I know best. And what the government and every side would say is, no, this they want to keep their foot in the Roman Empire and a foot in faith, and it doesn't work. It's a divided loyalty. Again, this isn't about God being against money. If He was against gold and silver, He would have never created it. Again, He's the creator of it. But He wants it to start with His kingdom. That takes surrendering to Him, because it's only through surrendering that the heart and mind change. Believe me, I don't even want to say adventures. The last 5 years have shown me much truth about this. And I've said before that many times God's had to pull me away from the world, because the world will pull you into that the system is right. And it's not. It doesn't do a whole lot for anybody. Has it been corrupted by the left? And yes, but it is a system that, even though I agree that God inspired it at the time in 1776, He did it based on where the biblical maturity was. So He inaugurated America from the get-go with the Pilgrims, the Protestants, the different sects that came here. He had already with them inaugurated, even before there was a government set up. But what quickly happened following that, so a covenant was made, and He doesn't break covenants. But what quickly happened after that was, once they didn't need God as much because on their travels here, they all needed God. So they had to fully surrender. But see, God wants you to fully surrender to him always. And I know people think, I don't want to do that. No, look, God is not the kind of God that once you realize what freedom there is in surrendering to him, what independence you truly gain from that, then you always want to do it. Just ask any recovering alcoholic that. Okay? There's a reason we end up surrendering everything. And many times we'll take it back because we get to this point where, oh no, we don't. And so for people that say that we can't just surrender, we don't know what would happen, then that's people that have a lack of faith. If you truly believe in God, then you should want to surrender to him. And if your ego's getting in the way, well, that's the reason he wants you to surrender. So and he'll humble you to strip the ego away. Because that keeps all this falseness in place. So I think that God has greater expectations of America. And, even if it takes the next 5 generations, I don't know. I'm hoping it doesn't. I'm hoping that the remnant, what remnant there is, will completely surrender. That's all he needs is that small minority. Because truly to have his kingdom, it meant everybody had to have their heart and mind transformed. And the only way that can happen is surrendering. Just because you go get baptized in the church, your heart and mind, if that's all you did, and you just go to church or you just read the Bible every day, but you don't ever connect with God, you don't seek him, or you only seek him when you have a problem, and you don't surrender, then he's not going to, are you saved? Sure, but he's not going to change the heart and mind. And that's a really tough thing to say too, because in my mind, if you truly do believe, then you should want to surrender. Because where's the belief if you don't surrender? But I don't think that many churches have taught this. Instead, they have taught that someday God will come back. Yeah, but it's based on the people. It is. I mean, yes, is the sky going to break open and God returns? And yeah. But is that going to change anything? You're still going to have a bunch of people that say, oh, tech's doing it, okay? You will have people just like when Jesus was here that are going to that are just going to say that's not really God. They'll never believe, put it that way. So that's why God's only ever needed the remnant. But most of Revelations has already been carried out. You've been living under the beast. At this point, it's all on man. And the governments, you're not going to get the left or the right to do that. You're just not. Most men in general won't do that. I mean, I've seen men in AA do it. But when it comes to the government, no, they're not going to. Many of them want their empire because they like that control. And so, again, all they have to do is tell themselves, well, we're trying to do God's will, but are you really? I don't think so. Most of you just, because if you look at the way it's set up and the way it's worked more for the elites, is that what you think that God would want? No, but that was always going to happen. Even the founders themselves, I've said this many times, they didn't expect it to last. They didn't. And so then you get these stupid people like Charlie Kirk and others who carry on and they want to tell you what morality looks like, but they don't even know what it looks like. Hell, if Charlie Kirk knew Jesus, he would have been giving up all of his money and walking with him. He was too busy making money. Again, that's in the Bible. And then because everybody's based, what Paul says, many people go along with the government. I mean, in the past, have gone along with corrupted governments and are sinning by doing so. Just because Paul says they're instituted, that's why Paul's writings were toyed with. Because if a government is involved in sinfulness, and then you align with it and you base it on Paul, then you're going with the religion of Paul, not the religion of Jesus. So I'm just saying that it's on man. God's waiting on mankind. He's waiting on the remnant to rise.